Hello everyone, I'm Vanessa, and this is my presentation on embedded self-care for caregiving professionals. That could be therapists, that could be nurses, that could be really anyone who's out working with clients and has to really maintain their self-care. So you'll notice that I'm kind of looking to the side every once in a while. I'm just kind of keeping track of the time we're at, and you'll have to bear with me because I've never really done this before. So things might be a little clunky, but we will get through it and it will happen. So let's see if I can do this at the same time. Great, perfect. All right, so hopefully this all records well. All right, so like I said, I am Vanessa Herzog. I'm a registered psychotherapist in the state of Colorado. I am a certified animal assisted practitioner, and then I am in my last semester of graduate school, getting my master's in the arts with a concentration in body psychotherapy, which is a form of somatic therapy. In case you haven't heard, just a brief synopsis of it. Essentially, body psychotherapy and somatic work in general really looks at the body-mind split and brings them together since they are in actuality inseparable. And that means that instead of focusing more on the talk part of sessions and more on talk therapy, we're really focusing on moving the body and changing our experience through a bottom-up approach. So why am I doing this? Well, originally this presentation was going to be done in person at my internship site, Animal Assisted Counseling of Colorado, but due to the current circumstances, that would not be an ethical idea to bring people together at that site. Originally, I was hoping to do this over Zoom, so it could be a live interactive webinar type thing where everyone could kind of put in their feedback, but I was not able to get professional access to a Zoom account. So I decided that this was just going to be the easiest route. So I will be stopping to pause and give you time on your end, whoever's watching this, to do the experientials on your own time, and then we'll do a couple in real time together over the screen here. So just kind of, feel free to pause this as you need, really taking care of your body. This will go for about an hour and a half, and we'll call it that. So yeah. So starting out, burnout. Burnout is a big deal, especially for those in the caregiving healthcare professions. We're taking care of other people constantly, and we're really helping other people out pretty regularly, and thus it is kind of our ethical obligation to take care of ourselves. That way we are not seeking to get our needs met through our clients or our patients. So I'm going to go through some of these slides fairly quickly, as I will send these out for people to get. You will also get a couple of sheets that we will go over today, and then at the end I'll kind of discuss if you want more access to some of the other resources I am discussing here, if you want to just in general talk a little more about any of the content of this presentation. So first off, why do people get burnout? Well, because of increasingly stressful environments, high caseloads, so lots of clients, just resources dwindling, like nonprofits not getting paid well, dealing with other coworkers, perspectives on their work, feeling like the job isn't fulfilling, and then with some, like especially those of you that work in inpatient facilities or, with more at risk, for lack of a better word, patients, there is the risk of physical assault. Those are just some pieces as to why we get burnout. I'm sure all of you have experienced some moments where you felt burnt out and some where you have not. So the research on all of this kind of talks about the 3 different types of burnout. And depending on the source that you look at, there's some that talk about more, like 6 or 7, but overall the research tends to come around to about 3 total. So there's overload burnout, which is related just to working too much. This tends to be the type of person that's a workaholic. Typically they will just keep working till they cannot, and they will make sure their workload is full regularly. This type of individual tends towards emotional venting, so they vent a lot about what's going on in their work, and oftentimes this venting leads to stress overload and just giving up eventually. That's not always the case, of course. Keep in mind that all of these are tendencies and not an all or nothing setup. So then there's also the under-challenged burnout, which this type of person is not really getting a lot of personal growth and is pretty bored and lacking appreciation of their jobs. So this might be the person that just doesn't feel like they're getting work that's on their level, that isn't getting enough work, that isn't using all of their skill set. This person tends towards avoiding and disengaging from their work, which can lead to depersonalization and cynicism. And lastly, the last main type of burnout would be worn out or neglect subtype of burnout, which is just related to lack of motivation, low energy. This person could be feeling helpless at work or just unaware of what to do next. So this might be somebody who's lacking direction in the work they're doing, or who hasn't been given any structure, or who lacks the motivation to find and create that structure. And this type of person tends towards giving up when they're stressed. And often this can lead to giving up, passivity, or just lack of motivation, which they could have already not had much of. So this slide kind of goes a little more into some details. I'm not going to discuss all of these, but just more contributing factors to burnout. Just to touch on it, the last statement where it talks about therapists who are single or divorced tend to show slightly higher rates of burnout. That comes from this article that you see down at the bottom of the screen. And that I think is just related to this idea that if we don't have somebody who is a really close, solid support system, we tend to be more stressed out on a regular basis. And that's, again, not an all or nothing statement, so not everyone has that same experience. So, signs and symptoms of burnout. So this is not an exhaustive list by any means. I'm sure you've experienced some things beyond this, and I'm sure if you took some time to talk to coworkers or to friends or family members or whoever really, because I think each profession can experience their own, type of burnout. I think that you would come up with a very different list. If we were doing this in person, I would have everyone kind of do some group work together and come up with a comprehensive list together. But since we are not, just go ahead and review some of these. I'll talk a little bit about them. Anger, irritability, increased use of drugs or alcohol, diminished enjoyment of their career, hypersensitivity to emotional material or insensitivity, taking a lot of sick days, feeling spacey, unable to focus, and then there's somatic symptoms such as lack of breathing, inability to relax or calm down, hypertension, hypotension, different things like that. And again, the symptoms for you may be totally different, but just something really to pay attention to is if you're noticing any of these things coming up, to really start examining where your life is at and just kind of the things that you need in the moment, and to reduce your own level of burnout. So again, just looking down here, I have some notes that I'm reading from just in case I forget anything. But yeah, so just kind of think about on your end what other types of signs or symptoms you've seen in yourself or in other people around you. So something that's pretty important, I think, as a somatic therapist towards tracking my level of burnout is the awareness of symptoms that may show up in my body. And this is based on the idea of hypoarousal, which is when the body kind of goes into a freeze or a collapse state on the extreme ends, versus hyperarousal. So that'd be like, your fight or flight system. And this can be anywhere on the spectrum between subtly in that state, like, maybe subtly you're just a little more hypervigilant in the moment. You might have a little bit of anxiety for hyperarousal, or on the subtle end of the spectrum, you might just feel really tired or unmotivated on the hypoarousal spectrum. But these are all different somatic cues and signs of if you were in hypoarousal or hyperarousal. And so that's just, very important, I think, again, to pay attention to in all of this. Give me 1 second. So yes, so very important to pay attention to. If you want more resource on this, I do have this chart you see down at the bottom of the screen on this slide, and it does go more into the subtleties on either end of this spectrum. So again, it's important to track kind of what's going on in your body, and I will go more into this in this next slide. So interoception, for those of you that don't know, I think it can kind of be used in several different fields, but in the somatic field, we look at it as a person's ability to sense their internal stimuli or what's going on in their body versus in noticing sensations and cues the body could be sending. For example, you might feel hunger as initially some bubbles in your stomach. You might start to feel a little spacey. You might start to get like a little lightheaded. And again, everybody's going to have a very different individual experience of this, and there will be some overlap, but typically each person has a different sensation or cue to knowing certain things. So the importance of interoception, and it's something that somatic therapists work a lot to increase in clients, is without the ability to notice what your body is feeling and kind of what's going on internally, it's very hard to know what you want, to know how you're feeling, to know the depth of what's really going on for you. So this is very important towards tracking our levels of burnout, right? So in my own self, even though I am a younger clinician, I have experienced the beginnings of burnout in a lack of ability to focus. I have noticed that I feel like I need to move a lot more and like pay attention more. I feel like I'm getting some hypertension. I feel like a little disoriented sometimes. I might feel just really fed up with wanting what the client is saying, and that can present itself in just being really irritable. That can present itself somatically in my stomach tying itself in knots, in my chest being really tight, in my breathing being shallower. So again, just noticing that signs of burnout can show up in several different ways, somatically speaking or otherwise. And so it's very important just to notice those things and to develop the ability to really track what's going on in ourselves and in our bodies. So I'm not going to go through these really, but these are some formal tests for burnout if you're interested. Some of them are free, some of them are not, and some offer reduced fees for organizations if that's something you want to try out. This bottom link has a pretty comprehensive list of several of these different tests and also more. So again, if you're interested, feel free to go check that out. So now we're going to get into kind of the meat of this presentation, the meat of it. And that's kind of ways to prevent this burnout. So I think it's really important, and I found it's really important for myself, and then also in general, just doing self-care for anyone can be a really great way to take care of the self, obviously, and to feel fulfilled and to ensure that you are not having a lack of something you need in your life in any aspect of it. And I think it's even more important, and again, our ethical obligation as therapists or other healthcare professionals, to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, because the downside of not taking care of ourselves could be that we might try to seek our needs in our clients. For example, if I am not getting enough from my friendships, I might seek kind of more of a friend type role from a client. If I am not getting if I'm not feeling like I'm intelligent or that I'm creative or whatever, I'm feeling kind of low self-esteem, I might seek for the client to build me up, and that's not really my place, ethically speaking. Granted, there are times for disclosure and personal sharing. However, it is kind of a gray area in the field, and definitely we don't want to be having our clients come to us and then fulfilling what we need from them when they are paying us. So again, super important, I think, and there's so many ways that you can look at taking care of yourself and trying to prevent burnout. I think kind of the main focus of this presentation is to give you tools to do in session and then in between sessions to really make sure that your body is well cared for, you're feeling good, and you're able to be the best caregiver, healthcare professional that you can be. So this is kind of just a rough overview again, organization and structure. So really, again, just making sure that you're taking care of yourself and maintaining the best balance and structure that you need to function. Everyone's going to have a different balance and what balance looks like to them. Like some person might need more socialization. Some person might need more time to themselves. Some people might need more time out in nature. Some people might need more time gaming inside. There's so many different people out there that it's really like something that you as an individual should sit down with and kind of feel out critically as to what feels like it's the right fit for you, and kind of where you need more and what you need less of, and maybe stuff that you don't need, Um, so again, just talks about some typical things that I think a lot of us know of, you know, taking breaks, having mental health days, ensuring that you have a lunch break, trying not to do back-to-back sessions. I know that sometimes that's unavoidable, especially the way that people's schedules work. So again, in that setting, in that setup, you should be, I think it's very important, not you should be, but I think it's very important that we are taking the time to care for ourselves in session with clients and then also in between sessions. So yes, it talks a little more about that. So making sure over the weekend or the beginning of each week that you have time to really make sure that you're going to have some good meals throughout the week, or that you'll be able to cook on whatever weekdays are going on, you know, eating healthy, exercising, all that good stuff, really getting those feel-good chemicals going on in your brain, and really helping yourself to feel good and just on top of your game. Um, and this talks a little bit more about rituals, just kind of, you know, having a ritual before you go to work and at the end of your day, so that you are not taking work home with you. Sometimes this could look like having rituals for the beginning and ending of each session with each client, and that might be something you and the client do together. Like for some of my clients, I start by we slow down and we take a minute to either do a little body scan or a little meditation or just a focusing session. We might take a moment to just notice what it feels like to be in this new space, you know, back when in-person sessions were a little more common. And just in general, taking a moment to really arrive here in the space. I know we did not do that today, but we'll be doing a lot of other experientials, so I'm kind of excited and raring to get going, so we did not slow down at the beginning here. But that is something that I tend to really like to do with my clients, and myself. It's just as much for the clients as myself, because I think slowing down gives both the client and I to really arrive in the space together, to be in the moment, and to really start to navigate and think about what is our intention for this session. What is our intention for our time together? And then I think just finding a way to end too. Like, you know, if you're doing something with a client, you might start by lighting a candle together, like especially with how we're doing telehealth right now with this whole pandemic. I think that could be a great way. You might, you know, like turn on your little fountain, get some flowers, whatever it is. You know, you can have opening a window, like just silly little things that can just give you something to ground yourself as you start and end each session, maybe pulling out some essential oils, different things like that. And as far as, you know, leaving your work at home, I've heard some clinicians talk about how they have an object that they bring with them into the office, and then it comes out of the office, or it stays right at the office, and that's kind of where they leave it, or like they'll leave it outside the door to their home as kind of a way of like, hey, I can think about work up until this point, and this is where I'm leaving it, outside the door of my home now. I've heard of some people do visualizations of, as they're driving away from work, they'll imagine like gum stuck to their car and they're just breaking it, things like that. So just coming up with your own ways that work for you of leaving your work behind is very important, because, you know, I'm sure as all of us know, thinking about our work 100% of the time is not conducive necessarily to having a really well-balanced personal life and feeling really fulfilled in our personal lives. And again, that's on a spectrum as well. And feel free to reach out if you want to talk more about some of those ideas, or to kind of come up with ideas together. And then obviously, you know, work-life balance type things, having your support system, debriefing with somebody, another clinician after sessions, making sure that you get vacation time, having an intention about what you're saying yes to, not taking on too much, and trying to say no more. I think that for those of us in the healthcare field, we tend to really want to give and take care of others, and sometimes that caretaking tendency can go too far, and we end up saying yes to everything because we really want to help. And while that comes from a really amazing intention, I think that, you know, that's going to lead us to burnout much quicker. And that's not to say too that at times there won't be the need for more work. Like right now, I'm sure with those of us on the front lines, you know, there's a lot more work to be done right now, and it's kind of hard. It makes it even harder to prevent burnout at a time like this. So these last three on the right, down at the bottom of the screen, come from the article at the very bottom. And they were saying that the three most important mediating factors to burnout were developing hobbies that are fulfilling you, reading and traveling for pleasure and fun, and then Really having a good work-life balance, like do what you value doing, do what you believe creates and fulfills wellness for you. So whatever wellness is defined as by you, make sure you're doing that. And again, like I feel like some of this is information you're already going to know. My goal here is really just to provide you with more tools and to just lay it out in a summarized format. Moving on here. All right, so we're going to start with the animal assisted side over to the right. And to do this, I just want to take a moment to slow down. My guest star has decided to join us a little early. So slow down and just notice the quality of your breath in this moment. Maybe take a soft gaze or close your eyes. Just check in with your body. Go ahead and get comfortable. Feel what it's like in the space you're in. Again, noticing the quality of your breath. Noticing any places of tension or lack of tension. Any places in your body that are calling out for attention. Just noticing, again, what's going on for you in this moment. Maybe noticing what you're looking at. Maybe noticing what you're hearing. Maybe noticing any smells or tastes, anything you're in contact with. I just want you to notice that and kind of take just a little snapshot of, what you're feeling right now. And this is, again, something I would have preferred to do in person, but since we're unable to do that, we're going to make do. And I just want you to notice what happens and what changes and how you're feeling and where your body's at, kind of when I start to engage with an animal here. This is Jake. So again, just noticing what it's like, how you're affected in this moment, just seeing an animal on the screen, watching how this animal and I have a connection and a relationship together. I've had this cat since I guess I should say in years, for about 12, 13 years now. Had him quite a while, so we are very bonded. He really loves to be held like a baby. He really loves his belly rubs. Just noticing how your breath might be affected, how your feelings are affected, what changes for you in watching this interaction. I notice for me that my breathing has deepened. My chest feels a little less tight. My eyes and my face, the muscles in my face feel softer, like they're holding less tension. Just seeing some of that mutual eye contact. As you can see, some of what I'm doing right now are in the animal assisted category here. I'm doing some deep breathing with an animal. I'm doing some mindfulness. I'm petting him. I have a relationship with him. We're probably co-regulating. I'm holding him and I'm gazing into his eyes. And really looking into his eyes and connecting with him is allowing my nervous system to co-regulate with his nervous system. So this is a great way, if there's any access that you have either at home or even at your job, to really engage in self-regulation. I'm sure all of you have at one point or another had some experience with an animal in your life that was really positive and enjoyable. Maybe some of you haven't. I am an animal assisted therapist, so I usually have at least one or two animals around me that I can connect with in the moment, and that's really great for embedded self-care for those of you that work with animals in that way. That is a great way to calm your nervous system down in the moment during session. Obviously, you don't want to just be sitting there like this with your animal, like, hey, we're doing therapy. That might be a little weird, but it is definitely a way you can learn to regulate in the moment and to help prevent burnout. So I'm going to put Jake down now, Mr. Jake, our little guest star for now, and I want you to just notice any changes in your system as he leaves the screen. And just kind of notice what it's like for you in your body, and again, the quality of your breath. Before I'm going to call on our other guest star here. And again, each of these are going to be really highlighting a different way that animal-assisted therapy can be really helpful for the clinician themselves and obviously clients as well. So here is our second guest star. This is Pudgy. I've had her, I think, about 8 years now, 8 to 10 years. She is a wonderful cat, and she will engage in some mutual grooming. Well, it's mutual because she thinks that when I'm petting her, that I am helping her groom herself. And this cat, the difference being highlighted here is that really it's more about the petting in this situation. I think with Jake, the biggest highlight is gazing into his eyes and the relationship he and I have. Obviously, Pudgy and I also have a relationship, but with her, it's a little bit of a softer encounter. And so just noticing in your body, any changes happening, any sensations. Noticing the quality of your breath. So again, you can see there's some grooming that's going on between us. You can see some of that relationship being developed. We aren't making a whole lot of eye contact. Pudgy's not huge on the eye contact piece. And then petting her, and we're just connecting. So just noticing what that's like for you, just to witness this moment with this kitty. She kind of drools a little too, so that's happening. And for our last guest star, it's going to be a little different. Again, kind of each of these interactions is just to highlight how different interactions with different animals can be really helpful for self-care. Again, whether this is at home or in session, you know, a lot of times when I'm in session with clients, I can reach out and pet a dog or a cat or one of the small animals we work with. I can gaze into their eyes. I can hold their paw. If it's one of my animals with, we have a pretty deep relationship. And so just looking at them can help my nervous system co-regulate. For those of you that don't have animals at your workplace, you can pull up photos or videos of animals to connect with. You can have photos of your own animal or videos of your own animal with you. And or you can just go home and really connect with them and use that as a way to kind of calm your nervous system at the end of the day. And for the deep breathing and the petting, you can start doing some intentional deep breathing while stroking the animal. So for example, you might have a ritual every day of coming home and just petting your dog or your cat for 5 or 10 minutes, being very mindful of the present moment, focusing on what their fur feels like, the smell of their fur, the cool little colors they have in their fur and their eyes. Noticing just everything you can see, hear, smell, and touch with your animal. And just letting yourself take some deep breaths for 5-10 minutes as you pet them. All right, thank you, Miss Pudgy. All right, so now we're gonna get our third guest star, who might be a little grumpy about being woken up. It was her birthday yesterday, so she had a pretty big day. But I just want to highlight kind of a different aspect of animal-assisted interventions and just animal-assisted self-care. So let's get this set up for this. You know, come here. So this is Pandora. So I'm going to engage in some play with Pandora. And again, I want you to just slow down and notice what it feels like in your body. Notice the quality of your breath. Notice any sensations coming up. And just again, noticing what it's like. This is a different species animal. We might have Jake and Punch kind of walking back and forth here. This is a different personality of an animal. And this is a very different way to engage with the animal than the other two. So it looks like we might have all of our furry co-stars coming up at different points. So again, noticing how your system responds to there being more than one animal here. What it's like just seeing, obviously, you know, the two cats coming by and then Pandora, like dog hanging out right here. So let's see if I can get Pandora to play with me a little. Come on. Oh. Not the left. Oh, what is that? Bring here. Bring here. Come on. Bring here. Yeah, bring it here. Just tilt this down a little so you can see her a little more. Okay, ready? Woo. Ready? Yeah, what a good girl. Drop it. Hey, drop it. Yes. Ready? Woo. Let's get the other thing. Should we get this thing? Oh, what's this thing? Come on, come on, come on. Let's get it. Get it. Get it. You're gonna get it. Are you gonna get it? Come on. Get it. Get it. Oh, you want the ball, huh? Drop it. So again, just noticing the quality of your breath and how it feels for you to watch me engage in play with Miss Pandora. Drop. Yeah. Ready? Oh, good girl. Let me drop it. Have it. Oh, good girl. Ready? Oh! So again, there's some of that mutual eye contact, there's play, there's definitely co-regulation, there's petting, there's just being in the moment with Pandora here, who really loves her balls. So even just for clients, a lot of times in session, they love just watching her chew the ball. She just loves balls and she gets so very into it. And people really enjoy watching her. And that brings in a lot of humor for clients. And I think it also gives clients something else to focus on beyond their own therapy and their own work. And it can be a really great intentional distraction. I think one thing to just look out for is if you're working with clients who regularly use the animals as a distraction, that can be not conducive to really doing some deeper work in therapy. So again, now that we're coming back to here, taking a moment to notice and check in with yourself, what your body feels like. Pandora, leave it. I'm just noticing what it's like to not have the animals on the screen right now. Noticing how this different setup of what you can see might feel different for you. And really, my work as a somatic therapist is often just slowing down and checking in with yourself and seeing how your body feels in the moment. All right, so we're going to move on to some of the sheets now that I'm going to send out to you. So feel free to follow along in your own way. So we're going to start with reviewing. These are the categories of internal and external resources. So just a brief idea of what it looks like. It's kind of like this. Again, this is one of the sheets that I sent out to you. It's a two-sider, so you have page 283 and 284. And for those of you that are interested, this book is also cited in the end of my resources. I feel like I'm using a lot of this book and a couple others in this presentation just because it's a comprehensive list. I think some people do better having a visual. And so these are really great examples, and I think, you know, we'll lead some experientials on some of these things too. So this, the categories here go through different resources, obviously. So there's relational, somatic, emotional, intellectual, artistic and creative, material, psychological, spiritual, and nature. And what's really great, I think, about this list is that while it probably is also not exhaustive, it does not have everything that's possible on it. It gives you a really great overview of different ways you can resource yourself. And this is such a good list because it gives you so many different ways to do that. Like if you're somebody who, you know, is more in touch with their friends or whatever that is, if you're somebody who's more intellectual, if you're somebody who's more creative, it gives you an option. It gives you several different examples that you can try on your own and see what works best for you. And what's great about this is it goes into the difference between internal versus external resourcing. So for example, Pandora's trying to come back in the screen here. So for some people, for example, sensing what's going on in your body could be triggering, or it might be something you don't have a lot of practice with. But for that same person, you might be really good at noticing what's going on outside of your body. For example, noticing what it feels like to have the sun on your skin, noticing what it's like to hear the breeze or hear the birds. Different things like that could be considered external somatic resourcing. And so everyone's going to have a different tendency, whether that's internal or external. And then you're also going to have a different tendency towards what categories of resourcing work best for you. Okay. We have Miss Pandora coming up here. So just kind of checking that out. Feeling free to use that on your own time. I just wanted to give you that resource because I think it's pretty important. So we will move on to the next sheet here that I have sent you, again from the same book. It's on page 381, and we're going to just do this briefly together, just to kind of give you an in-the-moment experience of what this would be like. So this is the using your breath, noticing your breath worksheet. Looks like this. Again, you should have a copy that you received in the email with this presentation. So essentially, we're just going to take a second to check out our breath. So go ahead and get comfortable. In whatever way that is for you. I have Miss Pandora down here on the floor. So finding a comfortable position, either sitting down, laying down, whatever feels most comfortable for you in this moment. And understand that we aren't going to be changing anything right now. We're just going to be noticing really mindfully, kind of the whole John Kabat-Zinn idea of watching the clouds float past. So first, just kind of, and you're welcome to fill this out now, or you can just remember it for later, or you're also welcome to pause the video in between each of these prompts and write them down. Totally up to you. Whatever works best. So first, just kind of notice how you're feeling right now. Just checking in, you know, maybe you're feeling good, content, satiated, satisfied, whatever it is, just checking in with yourself again. Maybe you're feeling some discontent or anxiety or fear coming up, whatever it is, just noticing. And now we'll kind of move into noticing what your posture is like. You know, are you sitting up? Are you slumping? Do you have any tightness anywhere in your body, your neck, your shoulders, somewhere else? Does anywhere in your body feel particularly spacious or closed off? Certain parts of your body you don't feel versus the parts that you do feel. Just kind of doing a slow, quick body scan here together. Just checking in. Again, we're not trying to change anything. We're just kind of taking our temperature right now, the moment. And now we're going to start checking in with your breath. How you might describe this, where your breath is at here in this moment. Is it fast, slow? Is it deep or shallow? Jerky or smooth? Does it feel regular? Again, not changing anything, but just feeling it out. Noticing what it's like for you in this moment. None of it's wrong. It's all okay, wherever your breath is at right now. And next, just noting if your breathing feels comfortable. Does it feel natural and easy? Or does it feel strained, tense, uncomfortable? Does it feel good for you to pay attention to the breath? Does it feel bad? Is it kind of some mixed feelings there? Whatever's coming up, totally okay. And now checking in with your inhale versus your exhale. Just counting where your inhale is at, counting where your exhale is at, and noticing if they're at the same rate or if they're at different rates. And if so, which is longer, which is shorter. Now we're going to move on to the next part after you've noted where your breathing is at as far as time. I want you to just notice what parts of your body are moving while you're breathing. Do you feel your breath in your ribs, your neck, your chest, your shoulders? Do you notice any movement from your breath on the sides of your body or in the back of your body? Do you feel this down in your abdomen or your stomach? What do you notice and where do you notice it? Taking a minute to check in with that, feeling into wherever the breath is moving your body. And now, I just want you to take a moment to describe to yourself if your breathing changed while we did this, just noticing it, and if so, how. Maybe it didn't change. That's okay too. And then this would be something, this last prompt, number 8 here, you can take some time to do. Feel free to pause the video to do that now, or feel free to come back to it later, or you can just skip over it for now. Totally up to you. This is just another tool for you to use to start paying attention to what's going on in your body, developing that interoception. The thing to keep in mind is that for some people, the breath is very triggering, like I mentioned earlier. So triggering for some people that this may not be something that you can do at the present time, and that's totally fine too. Again, I'm going to just present a lot of tools to you today, and you can take what works best for you, or take some do with clients, or just, keep them in the back of your mind, and maybe down the road, they'll fit better for you at that time. So again, noticing your breath is a way to develop that interoception and to really start to get in touch with the moment. It's also a way you can kind of subtly check the temperature of how you're feeling in the moment in session with clients. It's a very easy intervention to use while with clients, and in general out and about doing anything else as well. So the last one that we are going to touch on is in this little slide is this sheet here developed by Christine Caldwell. She taught and helped found the program at my school. I go to Naropa University, so a very cool lady. She's no longer there, but she contributed a lot of great stuff to Naropa, and yeah. So this sheet kind of goes into the purpose of breath and what it means for us. It talks about ways that you can use the breath to help assist clients, and it talks about the actual function of breathing. You know, it regulates our oxygen and carbon dioxide balance, our pH, our blood sugar, blood pressure, heart rate, and other metabolic functions. Typically, it's been researched that the inhale slightly increases sympathetic tone or upregulates or brings more energy into the body, whereas really focusing on increasing the exhale brings up more parasympathetic, so relaxation, calming, those aspects, which is why a lot of times, you know, when we are out exercising, our breathing really quickens, or at night when we're going to bed, our breathing tends to slow. So you can kind of just see those natural patterns of what happens with our nervous system and how we feel when the inhale is more focused on or faster than the exhale versus the exhale being a little longer and more focused on. This is also something that you can start just checking in with yourself on several times throughout the day, and really just noticing, you know, how does your breathing change when you're feeling a different emotion? Like if you're angry, what is your breath like? If you're sad, what is your breath like? When you're happy, you know, how does your breath change? Like it's just a really good place to start checking in with yourself again. If this isn't a triggering thing to notice for you, there's definitely other things you can start noticing as well, like really paying attention to your muscles or different things like that. We'll kind of go into some of that a little more towards the end of this presentation here. So it gives a couple practices on what you can do for breathing, and there's a lot of different deep breathing techniques out there, square breathing, things like that. So it talks about breathing into the belly, because a lot of times when we're breathing just in our chest, that tends to cause a lot of anxiety for some people. And talks about how, you know, when we exhale, we can really think about letting go, can promote some safety there. We can keep the inhale and the exhale at the same amount. And a great way that I like to visualize kind of this idea, well, actually this came from a different professor of mine, I should say. She is also, one of the sheets we'll look at soon, she created. So she talked about how the breath is kind of like a mountain. So this is when the inhale is at the same count as the exhale, right? So let's say we're at 4-4. So if you wanted to bring more energy into your body, you might do something like this, where you do an inhale at a count of 6 versus an exhale at a count of 4. Let's say you're somebody who tends towards anxiety, so you might then make the exhale longer than the inhale, with the inhale at a count of 4 and the exhale at a count of 6. Where is that one? There it is. So this is a great way to work with clients and with yourself, because there's also a little visualization to it. So again, this just talks more about how you can balance the breath at the same count, or you can increase the count either on the inhale or exhale end of the breath. So another way to do this is you could move your body while you breathe. And I think that might be getting a little more in depth into somatics than we have time for today. But if you want to know more about that, feel free to reach out to me. I will have my contact info at the end of this. All right, where are we at here? So again, if you think of any more ideas for all of this, you know, this is by no means an exhaustive list. This goes through some animal assisted. There's plenty more animal assisted. Really, I think the main focus is on mindfulness and being in the present moment with whatever you are doing, because that really allows your mind to settle and quiet. And there's a lot of research that backs that up now. And then, you know, it kind of talks more about how somatic practices could be focusing on stretching. You could focus on squeezing certain areas of your body, you know, like in session you could do something like this, or stretching, to really just check in with it, where your body is at, how you're feeling, and what's going on for you. You know, say that, you know, I've been sitting like this a lot of the presentation. Well, one way that I might kind of re-regulate myself and check in is I might switch up my posture here and just kind of try this one out. And that postural shift can be enough of a change that I might feel very differently in this posture. So again, just noticing how you feel in different positions is another interoceptive cue of checking in with yourself and how you're feeling in the moment. So moving on, there's a little bit more here on the different somatic resources. So, body check-ins like we've been doing here, we're just noticing what's going on in your body, doing a body scan. Maybe you're gonna start from head to toe and just see what's going on in each spot, each part of the body. You might check in where you have tension versus softness in your body. You might switch the space you're sitting in, so I could go sit elsewhere in this room. You'll notice that I yawned a couple times, which is kind of, my way of regulating as well. Once my breathing is able to deepen, I tend to yawn more and start to calm down a little more, and I lose a lot of that tension I'm holding. I might focus on my sits bones, so my pelvic floor where I'm sitting. I might focus on the spine. Pandora's right here. I might do some intentional looking away from the, what are you doing? I might do some intentional looking away from the client if I'm getting pulled into their sphere, if I'm not taking the time to come back to myself. I might do some intentional mismatching. So if the client is sitting, really forward and tight like this, I might try to, kind of loosen up here and sit further back and kind of down more. So that way I'm kind of creating my own way of keeping my energy field and who I am distinct from the clients in its own way. And that can come back to just kind of setting boundaries through a nonverbal way that can keep you, it's very important to attune to our clients. However, if we're 100% attuned to our clients all the time, sometimes we really pick up some of their energy, some of what they're feeling. It can be hard to shake that off at times. So that's a great way to kind of shift that out. You might do some joint mobility. So that can be, going through the joints, rotating them. All of your joints have a different way they can be moved, your knees, everything, elbows. There's lots of different ways to really engage in that. You can do that in the moment, or you can do it in between sessions. Looks like we have our little co-star coming back here. You can breathe into places that have tension in your body. You can have some mindfulness. You can also, a really great one that we do in a lot of our classes is just a good shake off. It's a little tight for space here because Pandora is right behind the chair, but that would look like just kind of like shaking it off, really like shaking that out. And so we're going to pull up this next sheet here that you have access to for another little experiential, another tool you can use on your own time. That would be this sheet here on adjusting sensory stimulation. Again, from this same book, Sensory Motor Therapy Interventions for Trauma and Attachment. And what I really like, again, about this sheet is that it's comprehensive and it has several different ideas that you can try. I think we probably have a little bit of time to explore one of these. So you can just go through this list on your own and kind of write what energizes you, what brings your energy down, or what's neutral to you, or what you really don't like. So this is a really great sheet for that, as it gives some good examples. Granted, again, not an exhaustive list of examples, but enough that you can start to conceptualize kind of what these might look like. So if you'll just pick one of these to engage in right now, maybe you're eating something, maybe there's something you really like to look at near your space. You're welcome to look at any of these things here. Maybe there's a scent you really like, an essential oil you can pull out. Maybe there's some music that you really like playing in the background, maybe some birds you can hear. Maybe you can really feel something, like maybe the shirt you're wearing or a blanket you have is really a nice touch or a texture for you. So if you'll just really take a moment with me here to start engaging in that fully. Whatever that is, if it's hearing, I want you to hear everything you can about it, the different sounds it makes. You know, like this water fountain, you know, where does the water hit? How does that sound different? And really just focusing on that. You might want to shut your eyes if you're not looking at something. You might want to take a soft gaze. Just really being mindful of whichever sense you've chosen right now and whatever it is that you are sensing in this moment. If it's something you're looking at, really taking in all the colors, like this one flower, looking at the different colors it has here, the different shades, the different things that are on here, where the pollen sits, all of those little details, you know, with an animal, where the different patterns of fur are, things like that. Really, again, just being very mindful, kind of ignoring, if you're looking at something, ignoring kind of your hearing and smelling and all these senses for now, and just focusing on what you're seeing. If you're touching something, really noticing where it feels differently, how it feels differently, maybe rubbing it on different parts of yourself, and just noticing what it feels like to engage in that, and how it is different to engage in that in different areas of your body, with different parts of your body. If it's something you're eating, really playing with taking small bites versus big bites. Tasting on the tip of your tongue versus the back of your tongue versus the sides, noticing what it's like to take little bites or to chew it for a really long time. And if it's a smell, just kind of playing with what it's like to smell it really close versus far. How far away can you smell it still, versus what is it like to have it right up under your nose? Maybe putting some of it on your hands and really smelling it like this. I'm just going to give maybe 30 seconds here, 30 seconds to a minute for you to continue engaging with this sensation. And again, just noticing it for right now, and thinking about how this sense could be a resource for you, either in the moment in a session with a client, or during your time period with a patient, or in between sessions, or even just going home. So really just being mindful of that. And taking a few moments to wrap up whichever sense you're engaging in. And just noticing, coming back to again, what sensations you're feeling in your body, what you're noticing, if anything. If the quality of this moment has changed for you at all. Again, just noticing, just really keeping tabs on what of these tools is working for you and kind of how you're feeling about each one. So we'll go ahead and move on here. There's lots of other tools than this. If we have time at the end of this presentation, we'll do a couple more experientials together, ones that you can kind of work on your own time. And with each of these two, I'm trying to keep them shorter. I would love for you to engage with all of them as much as you can, but everyone has kind of a different ability to stay with things like this. Some people can stay with it for hours, some people can hardly stand a minute. So really just noticing your tendency and what works best for you, and really just allowing yourself space to engage in it later, and again, if you would like that. So these are just some other ways, just kind of various compilation of other things you can do to engage in self-care and to prevent burnout. These are some things that I've come up with, and just things I've come up with from students in classes I'm in, as well as professors and things like that. So obviously like massage, quiet, going out in nature, reaching out to people you love, working with health coaches. Personal therapy is huge, doing your own therapy, having a self-care toolkit you can create. You can make like a little box or a little bag where you put in textures you like, essential oils, maybe things you like to look at, pictures, whatever works for you, some silly putty maybe, or some adult coloring sheets, things like that. So that way you have it on hand if you need it. There are compassion fatigue centered therapists out there. That's another term for burnout in the field, is compassion fatigue. There's also more education you can get on this. There's a lot of different organizations that run like more professional furthering education on this, and presentations and whatnot. You could choose, if you're at an agency or an organization, you could choose a self-care theme for each week and just kind of trade off and play around with it, trying on new types of self-care, whatever. Delegating tasks if you have a lot to do at home, and seeing if your loved ones can help you kind of work through some stuff. Baths, hikes, movies, dog parks, going out to dinner, hot tub, making sure that you're doing some sort of exercise and workout on a fairly regular basis that fits well with you and your body and your body's needs, adapting it to fit you. And then I've created, there isn't one out in this room, so I can't show it to you now, but I've created a little inspiration board type thing where I've put like quotes that I really like and photos and different things that I really love. And so I can really look at that and feel good. So just another idea. I guess just to highlight an important note is obviously it's what works best for you. For those of you working with more intense or vulnerable populations, you might need to engage in more self-care. For those of you that are working with, like everybody has a different amount that they can handle, and so it's important to notice that for you. Like, are you somebody who has a very high capacity or who is more sensitive? On either end, you might need more self-care or less self-care based on that, and just something to really pay attention to. Where is your meter for how much self-care you need, when you need it, and what types of self-care work best for you. Again, just really checking in with that interoceptive part of yourself and what's going on internally. Consistency is key. You really got to be consistent with your self-care practices for them to work out the best. There's a lot of research on the mindfulness piece on how developing a contemplative practice such as yoga or meditation regularly can be really beneficial. It's really just about giving yourself that space to process on a regular basis. And remember to just be really gentle with yourself. I know for all of us, there's weeks or days that we can't engage in this all the time, and that's okay. I think, again, consistency is the key. You're going to have times where you can't do it. If things get really bad, again, ethical duty as a healthcare provider, that we don't want to, like, if we're so burnt out that we can't give our best selves to our clients, that might be something to consider, taking time off of work. I understand that for a lot of people, the financial strain that could create is a big deal. But again, just really paying attention to that we want to be the best therapists, clinicians, healthcare providers we can be, because that's going to really allow our work for clients and our ability to support them to be the best it can be. So, and then also just paying attention to the environment you're working in, bringing in some flowers or fountains or things like that to make the space more comfortable for you to resource through that. If you have a window to look out of at your office, that's going to be really helpful. Different things like that are ways you can kind of structure things. And in general, there's some research behind it. I didn't put that up here. Feel free to reach out to me if you want any of that. But there's a lot talking about how the way you set up your office space is really conducive to how you'll feel in it, and your ability to take care of yourself in the moment as well. I feel like Oh, there we go. Okay. I was like, I feel like we missed one. So, again, this talks about the importance of giving yourself space to process what's going on, to debrief what's happening with clients. You can do a shake off in between each client. Each client is so different a lot of the time that we're going to feel very differently between one client and the next. So really taking the time that you can to eat, making sure you have a designated space in your day to eat. That way it's not kind of bleeding into other sessions, making sure that you're going to the bathroom, and caring for your body, really making sure that your body is moving, because if you're sitting in the same spot all day, it's going to get real stiff and tight and uncomfortable. So just really allowing your body to be the human animal that it is. I mean, just like, you know, I know my dog gets up and stretches pretty regularly, just really allowing space for that to happen. It's definitely preferred to have longer spaces in between each client if you can. Not for everyone does that work, and it's not always possible, but just really noticing that for yourself. And then, yeah, so then we will go over this sheet here. Should be in your email that I sent to you, the psychological functioning. So in somatic therapy, in some of the orientations around it, we talk about how different parts of the body are metaphors for different feelings and different things. So an example of this is, you know, with your neck muscles, it's about holding your head up high, it's about orientation, willpower, and pride. Like you think about somebody who, you know, walks like this versus like this. And there's quite a big difference in that, and that's going to affect how you feel in your body quite differently. You know, again, maybe try it on now here. Chest up, head up, nose up. And just notice that for a minute versus shoulders down, chest in, head tilted down. And just noticing maybe one feels more comfortable to you. Maybe one is really weird to you and uncomfortable. So again, this sheet is just kind of for your own conceptualization of it. You can use this as you want. It's just kind of to give you some ideas of how your body might feel in different parts and what that could or could not mean. Again, this is not a end-all answer for anyone's body whatsoever. Everyone's going to have different experiences of it. Let's see. I know that with myself, I tend to feel most things, most sensations in my stomach. And when I'm experiencing high stress, I will feel it in my stomach first and the longest. And that's a huge part of my own somatic sense of what's going on. And for one of my clients, she feels a lot right here around her throat, her upper chest. Everything kind of accumulates there. And funnily enough, she has a hard time speaking up for herself and setting boundaries. So, you know, sometimes those correlations, those metaphors are a lot more true than we like to think. Even like the idea of a pain in our neck, just really noticing maybe you do have some neck pain with that. So again, just another tool for you. You can use it or not use it. Might be interesting to you, might just be really boring, but just another thing to notice. And again, the importance of giving your body space to feel and to process, and really just taking the time in between clients and throughout the day to check in with yourself and just feel into how you're feeling. The next sheet we'll go into just briefly here is this emotions handout. Should be in the email I sent out to you as well. This just talks about the survival function of the primary emotions. A lot of people have talked about how many primary emotions there are, so on and so forth. This just, again, talks about the purpose of emotions. I'm sure as healthcare professionals, you all know the importance of feeling your feelings and that it's important to give them space to be felt. But again, just a little more information on it. And it talks about the purpose of each, and then kind of what happens if it doesn't get expressed. So this sheet you can't see very well, unfortunately, because some of the things did not copy over very well previously when I tried to do this. But it just talks about how if there's no expression of these emotions, how they can become pathological, and they can start to express themselves differently and become more intense, and then could become implosive or explosive for you. So Again, just noticing that, and that each emotion has its own action tendency associated with it, and different expressions, feelings, bodily symptoms, and then obviously cognitions, thoughts around it as well. So again, just highlighting the importance of really giving yourself time to feel things, really giving yourself space to process in whatever way you need to do that, like journaling, sitting with it, and critically thinking about it, meditating on it, whatever works best for you. All right, so we're gonna move away from that now. And we're going to conclude with kind of touching on, here are the additional resources. These are most of the things that I cited throughout this presentation. There are more resources if you would like. The last slide here before we kind of do a couple experientials to end with is, if you want to contact me for any reason, this is my email address. These are reasons you can contact me for if you want more ideas for support and resources. If you want to see me making some more presentations on similar topics or something different, feel free to let me know. If you're thinking you might want to try to create a video support group so we can all compile this list and really discuss this more in depth, we could do that. If you would like other resources emailed to you, and then also just for making connections and networking. So this will be in the PowerPoint I sent you. You will have this. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and switch to just this presentation itself, and we will conclude with a few experientials together. So I'm just gonna quick pick a few here. I have a list of different ones we could do. I'm gonna try and keep this relatively simple. So this, I'm not going to go over because this is kind of more of a worksheet, I would say. But if you would like access to this so you can kind of do it on your own time, feel free to reach out. This is again in the sensory psychotherapy or sensory motor psychotherapy book. And it gives pictures of different people in different postures. And it's kind of a worksheet where you can start looking at, what do you notice about this body? What might this body posture convey to others? What might this person be feeling, and what kind of childhood experiences might have led to this pattern. And these are a little bit more exaggerated, but again, coming from the somatic orientation, the somatic lens, we tend to believe that experiences throughout our lives have really stayed with us in our bodies and have formed the way that we tend to chronically hold our bodies and the postures that we hold them in and the way we move. And that's kind of what we're trained to analyze and assess as somatic therapists. So I think, give me 1 second here to just kind of choose what we're gonna go over. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move us to where there's a little more space and we can conclude some of this. Let me just figure out what page we're gonna start with. Well, more space for that. I guess before I move, I'm just going to show you this page really quick. This is just kind of a page for you all to view for a second. In particular, in that gray box, it talks about various sensations one might feel in the body. This is a great way to start expanding your vocabulary on different sensations you can find in the body. I'll just read a few for you here now. Knotted, puffy, fluttery, dull, electric, vibrating, twitchy, moist, chills, clammy, clenched, heavy, flaccid, buzzy, burning, breathless, bloated, blocked, sharp, twitchy, weak, wobbly. So just kind of to expand one's vocabulary on different sensations that you might find in your body. And I'm sure with time, if you explore this, you'll notice that certain sensations mean certain things that your body's trying to communicate to you. You're welcome to explore that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go move to a space where we have a little more room to do this virtually together. I'm going to explain the activity that we're going to do. And then as of right now, we do have time. So I'm going to start with 1 or 2 here and we'll do them together. And then I will give you 1 or 2 other ones you can do on your own time and pause the video to do since we're coming up on the end of our time here together. Okay, 1 second. Let me just get my timer here. Move to this space. All right. All right, great. So we are going to focus on increasing sensation. I discussed this a little bit, but we're going to start with just some gentle self-touch, just to notice what it's like to engage in that with yourself, and just to, again, this is something you can easily do in the moment with clients. You can teach clients to do this, but in particular, this is a great way to embed self-care into your sessions with yourself. So we're going to experiment with 2 different exercises in this, and I want you to just notice what comes up for you and how you feel differently. Feel free to pause this video and take notes if you'd like, or to take notes after, totally up to you, or maybe you'll just remember it. All right, so we're going to start by squeezing, starting with your hand and working your way up. I want you to be comfortable and just start noticing what this is like. Play with the pressure you're squeezing with, the speed you're squeezing with. Maybe doing it lightly, firmly, and just notice the difference for you. So I want you to just really stay with this for a few minutes here. We have time, so stay with this for a couple minutes, just with this arm, not the other one, please. And just notice. All right. And you can pause the video and keep doing this for a bit longer if you'd like, or you're welcome to stop now with me. I want you to just take a moment to notice what your arms feel like. The difference between the one that you were squeezing and the one that you were not squeezing. Great. Again, just noting it, something you can do in session. And now we will choose maybe the other arm And we're just gonna notice every aspect of this movement. So just really focus on sensations that come up for you in this arm, where you're feeling the most sensation, and we're gonna just kind of move it in a couple different ways. And again, I just want you to really notice what's going on. We're gonna start by taking this up, sending it out. Focusing on slow movements. Curling it in. Sending it out. Again, just noticing. What do you feel in your joints versus your skin, versus your muscles, versus your bones, versus your fingers? And again, just noticing, checking that out. And we're going to move on and do a couple more here. We have a little bit more time. So again, I'm using this book just because it's easiest. It's kind of a good compilation of different resources, but as a somatic therapist, there's plenty we can do with that as well. So now, just noticing if you're seated with your feet on the floor. Get there too. I want you to practice pressing your feet into the floor. This is a really great grounding activity if you're feeling unbalanced, if you're feeling just not yourself. This is a great way to engage with your body in a way that will help it to re-regulate. So again, pushing into the feet. Maybe try alternating the push and then push with both feet. Pushing down into the ground with your toes. Different sides of your foot. Just really making sure you're moving slowly and intentionally and pausing to really feel what's happening in your body. Now I'll ask you to stand up and we'll continue this standing together for a minute. Alternating. Feeling what it's like on the tip of your toe versus the heel. Leaning back up. I'll show you a little joint mobility here. Rotating the ankle. Rotating the knee. Do some figure eights with your knee. And now we'll do the other foot. On your knee again. And then just really taking a moment to check in with how your feet, ankles, and legs feel. We're going to do another one here that is not from the book, but is kind of based on the research in somatic work. We're just going to do the 5 developmental movements, and then we will end for the day. We have our little helper here. There's a little Pudgy over to the side that you cannot see. There she goes. All right, so we're going to focus on a push together here for a moment. Pudgy is going to help. So I want you to just get in a place where you can push. This can be against a wall, the floor, it can be a push-up. If you have like a yoga ball, you can push against the ball into a wall. And just, we're gonna go very slowly and really push hard into the ground. Just really feel as you're pushing. Feel into your hands, your wrists, your arms, your shoulders. Feel that push all the way through your body. This is a really great movement for anger. Just focus on moving the energy through your hands into the ground. All right. Now we're gonna do a great one since Pudgy's right here. So this is one you can do with an animal or an object or a person. Cause different reactions for different people. So notice how you feel while you're engaging in this and feel free to stop if it's feeling too intense. So we're gonna reach. Notice how your body feels in your shoulders, your hands, your arms. Noticing the quality of your breath, and reach like you really want to reach someone or something. So now I'm going to grasp, since this beautiful lady is right here. Actually, she is not a fan of that, so we're gonna grab this dog toy. So grab something and really notice what it's like to grab it. You reached for this thing and now you've grabbed it. And now pull it towards you. So we did push, reach, grasp, pull. So let's try the reach, grasp, and pull one more time together here. We'll put this down. Reach towards it. Notice any sensations that come up for you in this. A lot of times this might relate to how it felt if you were reaching for your parents when you were a kid. It may not too, or maybe reaching towards a partner who may or may not be reaching back. And grab, so our ability to get what we want and what we need in life look up with you. But honey, you guys stay on the screen, please. So grasping this, really grasping it, and then really allowing yourself to take it. So pulling it back to you and noticing any sensations or emotions that come up for you in that. This last movement we're gonna do is a yield, and since, well, we'll yield here with Pudgy. A yield is our ability to let go and to release. So I'm just gonna get down on the floor here with Pudgy. And I'm just gonna focus on letting go. Really letting my body relax, my organs slipping to the back of my spine, my breathing to regulate. I'm letting go of anywhere I'm holding in my arms, my legs, my face. The ability to yield is the ability to take in the moment and to receive nurturance and pleasure from it. I'm just noticing how you feel in this. Maybe it's hard for you. Maybe there's an impulse to go do something else or to move. Just noticing. Maybe taking a few breaths here. Checking in with the quality of your breath. Pudgy's helping here. She's doing some good reach, pull, and grasps herself. Thanks for the helper. What a great way to end. All right. So just want to thank you all for watching this video and tuning in. Appreciate your time. I hope this was helpful. If you have any feedback to give me on what was helpful, what could have been more helpful, what you'd want more or less of, I would love to hear it. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, appreciate you. Stay well, stay safe, stay healthy out there, and have a great day.